Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 3 of the anime series Gangsta. And from right out of the gate, I love that this was not like an action-centric episode. It was very much a just the daily routine of these main characters, Warwick and Nicholas respectively, and Alex really being, you know, she's still carrying that questioning of, do I fit into this world? Can I get used to this world? And she's trying to figure out the relationships between these characters, and we find out a lot. I mean, the emphasis is on Warwick in this episode as far as what he does for his day job, being a gigolo and everything, and he wakes up at the very start of this episode having a nightmare that, you know, there is a through line of a thread throughout the entirety of this episode that seems to hint at or suggest that at some point, you know, Nicholas and Warwick, they met as kids, effectively, as teenagers, and it almost seems to give you the hint that Nicholas was integral into killing Warwick's family or something like that, or at least that is what the suspicion is, that, you know, this sort of soldier kid or whatever was the one responsible and then had kidnapped Warwick out of that scenario. And we don't know what the full picture is, and I am definitely left questioning how much of that we're going to have revealed to us in the span of the episodes we have ahead of us. But I also have a speculation sort of line going in my mind that maybe it was something like the family was horrible and they were taking advantage of and even abusing Warwick, and maybe it was a matter of Nicholas coming in and saving him. Maybe there was a rival faction of you know, gangsters or something. They were going to try to come and kidnap him, and somehow he and Nicholas were already affiliated, and Nicholas came in and saved him in that scenario. I don't know exactly, but we do see that they have some kind of a bond that goes back to their teenage years, even showcased in the reveal that Alex is becoming aware of, that they both have these tribal tattoos on their backs, which seems to imply a simpatico, a bond between them that is as yet, you know, unexplored and unrevealed in its entirety. We're just getting the whispers now of what exactly that's all about. And so we find that because Warwick is a gigolo, he sends Alex off with Nicholas to, you know, deliver these packages from Dr. Theo. Apparently there are drugs contained within, and this comes full circle to that hinting in the previous episode of the Twilights and the tags, and how all of that pertains to the doctor's experimental studies and playing around with that. Apparently you can induce this super-powered Twilight tag aesthetic through some kind of, you know, medicinal implantation, if you will. And again, I hope we will have more of this developed and explored and explained, because, you know, basically they end up in a brothel after Warwick has his one sort of gigolo date for the day, and gee, what a winner this one is. You know, why don't you bring the deaf soldier guy with you next time? We'll have a threesome. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like, yeah, okay. But when they get to the brothel, and you have this one prostitute woman, like, bad-mouthing Nicholas, you see that Warwick goes on the warpath. I mean, he is just shy of, you know, putting his fist through her skull, telling her not to ever dare mention Nicholas in any connotation, lest a negative one ever again. I mean, he puts the fear of death into her. And you have Alex just watching this shocked, and I'm kind of shocked because, especially with those hints and those whispers, as I say, of there being this bond going back to their teenage years, and if Nicholas was there, and as is, you know, being reported in papers, it was suspected he was responsible. They don't come out and say, but it was speculated that he was responsible for wiping out Warwick's family. Well, that is quite an intriguing problem. How could they become so closely knit and so bonded in this partnership if they began on such a negative, you know, spin, that kind of thing? And so when we are in this place, I mean, it seems like the Big Mama character, which made me think back to Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater with the Big Mama character, or rather MGS4, where the Eva character became Big Mama. But in any case, it seems like this Big Mama brothel leader woman or whatever is familiar with the scenario. She knows much about these two boys. She even goes out of her way to want to see Nicholas. Nicholas doesn't want to even enter, you know, the whole place, the establishment, but she walks outside purposely to be able to see him, almost in a maternal, twisted kind of framework, and he bows out of respect to her. So there's something there. There seems to be, she's more familiar with the whole line of how they were brought together and maybe their history than most other people seem to be. And Alex is the chief amongst which, as I said in my previous video, she's the through line, you know, that we as the viewers who aren't familiar with the source material are seeing this and experiencing this and finding all of this out step by step. And that meeting, you know, subsequently is where we hear more about the drugs and how they affect the Twilights. And the woman, what I was building up to, there is apparently a woman in, you know, this brothel aesthetic that is a Twilight, and that seems to, at least it's Big Mama's, you know, sort of idea, that she's nearing her end, because there's some level of they feel pain through whatever the course of, you know, becoming powerful, I guess. I guess there's a manner of having to have painkillers, but then there's a manner of instilling the power through the medication, through the drugs, narcotics, whatever they are, and then as well as suppressing it. So, I mean, it's quite intriguing that you have these three facets where you can implant the Twilight abilities, seemingly through this dialogue is the hint I'm getting anyway. You can implant the abilities, but those abilities might cause pain, might cause side effects, after effects. And you then get painkillers, and then there's a, you know, sort of drug that counteracts creating that power, maybe suppresses it. And so I don't know if the power is something natural or if it's something attained through consumption of these drugs. You know, and if the painkillers are meant to make the person be able to deal with their abilities that are subsequently put in them artificially. And then in this, you know, woman, this bedridden woman's case that Nicholas seems to be attracted by, or wanting to go comfort in any case because maybe he can relate to her. There's some talk of her being on her last legs because the medicine is becoming less and less necessary to quell her pain. Maybe her body's becoming numb from so much of this explosive interaction going on inside of her, and she's on her last legs as a result. What does this spell for the future of Nicholas and any other potential Twilights? I also found it absolutely fascinating as they're, you know, bringing these packages around. They end up going to the group of like gangsters that were backing the B2 in the previous episode, and they're just like, what happened to him? Hey, let's be simpatico, let's be friends, let's make sure we still have instead of a rivalry or we're becoming adversaries, you know, let's all work together and everything. It's like, yeah, because you don't want your asses handed to you, you know. But of course, Nicholas and Warwick are well attuned to going along with that, because for them, it just makes their scenario that much easier without having to worry about more people to take out or stirring up trouble, or, you know, whether it be with Officer Chad or whether it be with the other heads of the other gangster factions that are inhabiting this whole city framework. You know, there was talk, I think, in the first episode about there are 4 different gangster crime lord heads that pretty much coexist, and as long as there is a peace so-calledly between them, and they have people like Warwick and Nicholas to go after anyone who will try to you know, usurp their power or go after some level of earning money through, you know, shifting drugs around or whatever it is, as long as these 2 cleanup men, handymen, can get in there and wipe them out, everything stays smooth and functional and all that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, this episode was completely and utterly lacking of action, but there was so much story and exposition, and it wasn't like brain numbing. It was just as captivating. It was just as drawing me in as everything. And I like that we're getting a little more of an idea of who Warwick is, and we're getting a little more of a hint of this through line that goes all the way back to their childhoods when apparently they first encountered each other and they escaped to this place. And I'm left just wanting more. I want to know more about what forced them together, what exactly that scenario played out to be. Did Nicholas kill Warwick's family? Was he there to stop the deaths of his family? How come they are so well bonded? And it's interesting, again, the Alex character, very much, she's strung along through this episode, just going along, going through the motions with them in this delivery process, and just kind of being in the background to observe. You know, she's very much the eyes through which the viewer sees, and is coming to understand all of this. And she herself, that's not her sole purpose. She herself is an intriguing character because as of this point, you know, there's a moment where she's been warned by Big Mama, maybe you should get out of there, or maybe it was the, you know, sort of a little shop owner lady, the old lady who at first gives her crap and then is like talking to her on her own level for a little bit there, about the histories of Warwick and Nicholas respectively. But whoever it is, somebody gives her the advice that you should think about not staying around too long because you're going to find yourself in a whole bunch of trouble. You know, everything's going to go muck and you're never going to be able to escape whatever is going on. And even Warwick himself tells her this. But this is after he wakes up the next day. He's come back to the office, and there was a brief amount of time where Alex was kind of just observing him sleeping, and that's where she sees the tattoo that matches the one Nicholas has. And she goes and she's sitting in that little sort of nook back alleyway where they first found her. And Warwick goes and encounters her and kind of has those same sort of warnings, but it's after he's realized, oh, maybe she's left. And then, sure enough, she's still there. For whatever reason, Alex has chosen not to leave, even though she's being told from every which way, witnessing the gunning down of these, you know, gangsters in an alleyway. She's shocked. She's just brought to her knees once again out of the shock and the horror of it all. But yet something is compelling her to stay. And to me, all of these characters, this trio of characters specifically, but this whole world, this whole environment is intriguing, it's fascinating, and this trifecta of characters most especially, without needing the sort of garnish of action, without having to build up the momentum, if you will, just being able to be expositionary and explaining a little more calmly and a little more vaguely what exactly the backgrounds are, was well attuned to my attentions and just had me drawn in, and I could not stop watching because I wanted to know, and I still want to know what is up with it all. And so I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 3 of Gangsta. As of the time of this recording, it was actually at a day earlier than expected, but no less worse for the wear. I was actually really excited that it was up, and just to be able to watch it, you know, I had my eyes peeled through every scene and followed that dialogue pretty closely because it's just that compelling. And so yeah, anything goes in the comments below as long as it's not spoilery material based on the origin material. But let me know what your speculations are, if you have any to offer about the relationships between Warwick and Nicholas respectively, and where you think the story may be headed. Is there going to be some sort of big overarching plot line, or is the series going to mainly comprise, you know, episodic adventures with little footnotes of their history along the way? And in any case, whether you are loving it, hating it, somewhere in between, let me know in the comments. So otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.